I think that the biggest challenge generally in a startup is that it doesn't always go up.
Hello and welcome to the Startup Stories Podcast, the show for people looking for startup inspiration and learnings that they can apply to their own ideas and businesses. I'm your host Daniel, and on this podcast, I am all about uncovering the challenges and learnings of early stage founders to help more people get into entrepreneurship. In this episode, I interview Patrik Schär, the co-founder of Selma Finance, a digital platform that helps you invest money the right way with a never-before-seen minimum investment amount of just 2,000 Swiss francs. The platform offers online solutions and services starting at only 1 franc 20 cents per month and opens up the investment world to people who cannot afford a pricey face-to-face consultation with a private bank. So people like you and I. Welcome, Patrik. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks.
Awesome. You've had a good day today?
Yes.
I'm all right.
Pretty satisfied, yes.
That's good.
Productive day?
Well, I had more productive ones, but I think what I did was fine. Yes.
Was fine. Okay, cool. Could you maybe start by telling us and our listeners more about you? Who are you and what startup are you doing?
Mm-hmm. I'm Patrik. I'm one of the founders of Selma Finance. Selma Finance is a digital advisor that helps you to invest your money in the right way. So maybe first I can tell a little bit about myself. I grew up on a mountain, so I'm a mountain boy from the mountain of Rigi. I didn't really think that I'm going to be a startup entrepreneur at any time. I had a classic banking career. I did a bank apprenticeship at Luzerner Kantonalbank, and then I used to work in different places in banking, in VZ and in a private bank in Zurich. Then a little bit before 30, I wasn't sure if banking is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Yeah. And then I went to study in Copenhagen at Copenhagen Business School.
That's nice.
And that's also where I got in touch with startups for the first time. I used to work there as an advisor in a startup bootcamp and helped startups with finance and like creating their business plans and everything, finding investors and things like that. First, I figured out that finance is very different for a startup. It's a bit different to do business plans for them because a lot of the figures are maybe not that set in stone yet. And also, I saw that those startups, they had a totally different approach to work. Also to work with clients and to focus what clients want and what they need, not so much focusing on themselves. So coming from Swiss banking, where you have this, I think, huge projects with external consultants that are very expensive, and then you figure out it doesn't really work. It was a very different approach than the startups did there. Also, everything was very open. And I think I started to notice that quite a lot of things I saw in banking so far that they went wrong. Then, long story short, first we started another startup that didn't work out so well.
Yeah, I checked it out.
Yes. The Now app.
Yes.
What was that about in one sentence?
It was about meeting instantly for activities, not dating, but for playing tennis, poker, going for a coffee, things like that. And we figured out that we did it hyperlocal, which was an very attractive topic at the time. But hyper-local also often means that you're the only one hyper-local. And
you go too local, that's not good.
That's not that funny, right? So you need to have a lot of people that you find somebody in the same place that is interested in the same activity that you are. And you need to build those communities in every single city. And you need to have a lot of marketing that you can spend. So we learned tons of things. So if anybody needs some advice in a hyperlocal meetup app, we have a lot of things that we learned the hard way there. But it was a lot of experience, a lot of learnings. But it just also it didn't really take off. And also for us, like I did that while I still did university, and it wasn't something that I felt, okay, this is what I want to do. Like I'm super confident about that this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And that's about when we basically had decided that we don't want to put any more effort into that. I was thinking that we could change things in finance and in banking, because this was my area of expertise too. And I just felt that there are a lot of people that like get a product that is not very, very cool for a price that is also not very, very good, and that we could do that much better. So I've used to work in private banks, and there are a certain clientele that gets a personal advisor, and those people they get, somebody sits down with them and talks with them what is good for them and their wealth. And it's not about like selling them a fund, but it's about first figuring out what they need, and that needs a person, and that's why not everybody gets it, because it's very expensive. So we said, okay, why don't we do this for like people like us, right? For people that are not a normal private banking client, but a normal human being that just has like a couple of thousand maybe francs on the side. Yes. Then shall I just continue talking, or you
sure.
ask question?
Yeah, I mean, so you offer the services of a private bank a little bit when it comes to investing to people like you and me,
yes,
who can't afford the face-to-face consultant at the bank. So you do that with a software.
We do that with the software. Yeah, it's an online service. It's a digital advisor. So Selma is also the name of your digital advisor that you get.
Cool.
It's like it's like a private banker in your pocket that helps you with all matters of finance. So that helps you figuring out, should you even invest money? Like if you should, how much? When you know how much, how? And obviously we are also working on giving more advice also in other like finance related things.
So the whole solution sounds like a big solution, right? It's a big, like a lot of functions in it, features. How did you figure out what to start with? Like what was the first thing you kind of launched as an MVP to attract the first customers?
Well, the first thing we launched as an MVP was that was not what we're doing now. We first launched a fund search, so where you could find. I said, okay, people can't find attractive products easily, so we launched a fund search where you could find ETFs online. And then I had this discussion with my co-founder, our designer, and she said, this is where I can make this look nice, but I still don't understand what it does. So it's not really first of all, what is an ETF, and what is this? Like I can compare things here, but what is this? And I think that's when we started realizing that there is a far bigger problem here. So that there are a lot of quite clever people that can't relate with this whole world of finance. So it's not enough to make a nice fund search, but you need to start earlier and actually explain people what they should do. So the fund search still works somewhere in the background of our product and helps us invest in a good way. But then the first thing that we built after figuring that out is the chat part that chats with you as a client to figure out what is good for you. So it asks you, how old are you? Do you have other investments? Do you have a house? Do you have a mortgage on the house?
Yeah.
And then based on that, it figures out, should you invest, or like when you easy case, you have 10,000 Swiss francs, but you need to buy a car that costs 20,000 by the end of the year. We basically gonna tell you it's not a good idea to invest those 10,000 Swiss francs now, because the time you have is not long enough.
So that was the first function you built, kind of like
that. The chat to set it up. That was
to figure out if you should invest something or not, or how much. You should
like
invest.
to figure out your personal financial situation, to have an information about how your overall situation looks like. So that's also the first thing that your bank should figure out, basically. Like, instead of coming and saying, okay, we have this balanced fund, it's product of the month, and this month it only costs half the fee, they should sit down with you and figure out what kind of a person you are.
Yeah.
And obviously when you had this first conversation, it can go, when you're in our tool, it can go further. So Selma can ask you, okay, now we know your basic situation, let's talk about this more detailed.
Yeah. So it's really like an advisor in your pocket.
Yeah. It's like an advisor in your pocket, yes.
Yeah. So you mentioned your co-founder.
Yes.
And I while checking you up online, I saw that you're a remote team.
Yes.
You have people up north.
Yes.
Could you tell us a bit about that? How does the remote work for you as a team?
Good in general. We use a platform to communicate. We use FlowDoc, not Slack. Not Slack. We use FlowDoc, but it's maybe also a bit because one of my co-founder was a co-founder at FlowDoc before, so might be slightly connected.
Yeah.
But we're very satisfied with FlowDoc.
Okay.
That was for Mikael.
Yeah. Well, it seems to be good if you're still working with it.
So all the communication goes through that. I think what's very important for us is that everything is very open. So also the emails we write, all our investor communication, everything goes through this service. Mm-hmm. So it's open for all the employees. What is an exception from that is obviously the customer data that is protected. Yeah. So there, not everything goes to the service, but all the feedback, everything gets shared.
I saw that
right away.
You shared your Trello board.
Yes.
On the website. That was quite cool, where you can see all the feedback. What challenges and benefits would you say you have from this working remote? Yeah.
I think sometimes it's let me maybe start with the challenges. I think it's difficult when it's maybe emotional or when you have difficult decisions. Mm-hmm. So you can't really process feeling that well. When you are sitting on a table, it's easier. Because you can see facial expressions, you basically feel the emotions, and you don't really feel emotions on Skype and on Google Hangout.
Yeah, that's true.
So how we solve that is that we have sessions with the team where we have all the strategy things, and that we try to be together every now and then. So we have sessions together where we work on all our important decisions, setting up our goals as a team.
How often a year is that?
That's like every 1 to 2 months. Yeah. So we try to do it every month, but it's not always possible. Yeah. Also, the team in Helsinki, they obviously also work together. in one place. Yeah. And then we have certain rules. So like being remote also means that in our meeting everybody's remote. So like everybody logs in remotely to the meeting, that the remote person doesn't feel like the remote
I see.
Guy.
Yeah, that's actually a good hint. Yeah.
So that's one of the things we do. What's obviously nice is that we can work from everywhere, and
right. That's
one thing that we do that helps us also working remote is we have walks in the team. So every second week, everybody walks with everybody for like 20 minutes, half an hour, totally non-business related.
So you walk with someone in Helsinki?
Yes, when I'm there, we walk together.
Yeah.
And when I'm not there, we have a call and walk together.
Cool. How did you come to that idea? And
we heard it. We copied it. We heard that from another startup where they had that, and we found it cool, so we also started it.
What did that give your team? Did you see any changes from before?
Yeah, I think it gives this like connectedness, even though you're remote, and it's nice to have information flowing, because usually you'd have always the same channels. So I talk to the person, to the maybe more to the other business person where I'm most related to. Maybe not so much with our tech people, or dependent on what we work on, and that makes sure that basically everybody talks with everybody, and it's there is no agenda always in a talk, so you can talk. I've been to Carnival yesterday, or like whatever. But also very often business-related things might come up.
Sure.
So
that's really cool. I've never heard that.
Cool idea.
Yeah.
I mean, we two basically do it sometimes as well, but we're only two in the team. So
we do
that's
vision
kind of
walks.
Yeah,
vision walks.
Yeah.
Vision walks, we call them.
Yes.
Sometimes it's not about the vision.
Yeah.
But because we were working on Flink, the digital insurance, and we had developers and designers abroad in Serbia.
Yeah.
And so I was curious, how you handled that. We didn't do those walks, but that would have been nice as well. Yeah.
Absolutely, because then you actually get to talk to people you don't really talk to during a normal day. And
I think what's still with everybody of us, everybody's part of the team. So we have no like outsourcing. It's even though people work remote, everybody is part. Also means so far everybody that is involved owns part of the company, which is makes you also connected in that sense.
Yeah, exactly. So we were discussing before the interview some parallels between what you're doing now and what we were doing before at the insurance. And one big challenge for us was acquiring customers, because for insurance, there's not a community that, is passionate about insurance and that you can reach easily. So we were asking ourselves, in finance, it might be the same. How do you reach your customers? Who are your customers?
So it's the same. So reaching our customers is also one of the main challenges for us, especially because this is a scale business, meaning you need to have a certain amount of customers before this actually yields returns. What is important for us is that we tried to actually make people interested in the product. Like you say, banking is not very attractive, right? What relationship do you have with your bank account? Like none. With your Haftpflichtversicherung, maybe also not so much, as long as nothing happens.
I had a very close relationship to my insurance.
Yeah, okay.
Yes,
but you work there. That doesn't count so much when you work there.
True.
So what we have with Selma is that there is a contributor community around it, and it's people that give us feedback on the product. We share everything first with them. We let them do usability tests, and it's interesting how many people actually are interested to give feedback. When I told this to bankers, nobody could believe that. They ask how much do we pay, and it's funny that people are interested to give feedback about those products because they want to use them, and they see we do something about their feedback.
Yeah.
So it's a friend of mine told he gave some, like he told some bug in the internet banking to his banks, and they haven't reacted for like, I don't know, now it's probably 4 years. So it's probably the last time he's going to tell them
Yeah, for
tell
sure.
them something.
Yeah, I saw the page of contributors. You
Yes.
you share their image, their photos,
Yes.
and it's you're scrolling through a page of pictures of people.
Yes,
It's
and so
really
those
cool.
are the people that helped us most, and that goes from people actually telling us that we have a comma wrong somewhere or that there is a typo on the page, to people sending us mock-ups and
Really?
yes, and telling us how they would like to have certain things.
Wow.
What we also do is we do something that's called Wine and Design. So we have 5 to 10 of our clients' contributors sitting around the table and working on something with us. That then ideally goes directly into Selma. So you can go home and the next day you can tell your friends that you've been co-developing this.
Nice.
And especially in finance, that's something that is
quite new.
Unheard of.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that makes us special. Obviously, this also helps us with growth because people go out and tell
And talk about it.
and talk about it.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it's not. It's obviously challenging to spread the name as a new fintech startup where you actually have to pay money in. You need to have a certain amount of trust to know Patrik is not gonna.
It's not gonna rob you.
Yes,
of your,
actually,
your
I couldn't. That's quite important. I couldn't run even if I would like to.
Yeah.
It's not a very attractive business if you would like to betray your customers.
There's better ones, yeah. So, yeah, we were talking about attracting customers.
Yes.
And we remember from our experience, we did Instagram ads with video, and how it always happens when you do something on the internet, there's positive reactions and there's negative reactions. Yes. And we had those negative reactions, some trolls or some others, and you've had some negative reactions as well.
Yes.
On Reddit, for example, I've read a couple of comments there. What was the thought of using Reddit, the community of Reddit, for doing ads, and more specifically, how did you react to those negative responses?
Why we did it, it's mainly because we have people in our team that are very active on Reddit themselves. And we found it's a place to get this honest feedback that we want. So we'd have a community there where we can show our product and they would say us what they think, like in our face.
Yeah.
Like, that's what they did.
I read some comments.
Obviously, people were also distracted because I think actually we were one of the first doing ads on Reddit in Switzerland. I think now there is others too. And you know how this is. If you're in a space and you're there and you see ads all of a sudden and you're not used to them, you might feel annoyed. Nobody likes ads, me neither. Like, nobody likes them. And what we did is I think we were very open to the people that approached them. We explained them that for us as a startup, it's just like, first, our intention is to show the product to get feedback. And second, for us, we need to do ads. Like, we also need to do them on all the online channels that are accessible, because we have a challenge with getting known, and that means if there is a channel, we have to place ads there. That's
true.
And explaining that, then from the people that reacted quite negatively, in the beginning, at least some of them, they were much more understanding after we explained them, hey, we're actually not doing this to disturb you, and we're just using whatever is there. So also in the beginning, Reddit didn't really have like much, sophistication in how you can filter stuff. So with other platforms, it means they're only showing like an ad, like a certain time in a certain time frame.
Right.
And they didn't really have that. So
meaning people saw your ads
every
day.
Like some of them saw it a lot, And also, if some of you are listening this, we're aware of that, and we know it's annoying, and things we like to improve, but we have to work with what is available.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I read the comments and your responses, and it really reminded us of our time.
What you had.
And also how you can really explain it, and some people understand it. We also had the same situation with insurance. But yeah, we would have done it the same way.
Yeah,
I mean,
To really
I
be
think
open.
people are also very skeptical when there is a financial product, because people are so used that they get ripped off with financial products, because with, don't know, maybe 95% they're right.
Yeah.
Like if there is an ad about a financial product somewhere, people are very sensitive to that.
Yeah.
And it's a bit difficult because all the terms, they're already like nobody believes them anymore, right? When if you say you're personal and you're transparent and like, I think you can only do that by proving it. So we need to prove that we are to our clients, and they can judge. But by just writing it, it doesn't really help, because everybody has already written that on their image brochures like a million times.
Yeah.
Nobody believes it anymore.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
So before you mentioned that your business only works in the scale, kind of like if you scale to like come to a positive return on investment. How many customers do you need to have to actually break even?
A couple of thousand.
A couple of thousand, yeah. And is it like, how do you want to get there? Is it like mainly, is it just in Switzerland, or is it different groups, or?
At the moment, we're only available in Switzerland. For us, it's clear that we also want to go to other markets, but for that, everything needs to work very smoothly on Switzerland. So I think when you go to the street, and even if you'd go to our, let's say, target segment, maybe, I don't know, 1 out of 20 would maybe know us. So it doesn't really make sense to go to another market. And also when you look at what you said at our roadmap, what kind of feature requests or things that our customers and users want to have, there is quite some of them that we want to make happen to basically say, okay, the main things are in place for the customer. And that means that we work that the Selma bot constantly becomes more intelligent to help you make better financial decisions. And that's not complete yet. So for that, we mainly work in Switzerland now.
So I don't know if this part is too specific, and if it's going to be in the final version, but we were really curious.
Yes.
Because for insurance, also customer acquisition costs and lifetime value are quite important. Well, important for every startup,
For every business.
but we had a strong focus on that.
Yes.
And so for our listeners, maybe to understand what those two are. So the customer acquisition costs are the costs that you spend to acquire a customer, and the lifetime value is the monetary value of that customer for the time that he is your customer. So the longer he is your customer, the higher the lifetime value, and the more he pays per month, for example, the higher the lifetime value. And so you need a ratio of probably 1 to 3 lifetime value. And we had, that was, I mean, it's nice if you have a subscription business that really increases the lifetime. How is it looking for you? How long does a customer have to stay at Selma for you to reach that ratio?
Well, it depends a bit, because we're charging on the amount of money that you invest with us. So it would depend on how much you invest.
So let's say I invest the 10,000, which is 6 francs per month, right?
Yes.
Let's say I invest that.
Yes. So you pay 72 Swiss francs per year. So now I need to calculate. That's very dangerous.
It's just rough. Yeah.
Yes. So what you say that our competitors, they pay between 300 and 1,000 Swiss francs for one client, and we pay significantly less than the 300. So I can't really go into the specifics with the numbers,
Sure.
But because quite a lot of our customers, they come through this community, it means that our customer acquisition costs are cheaper than what the competitors have. When you take the 72 for 300, then you're somewhere at 5 years, right?
Right.
So, and we have much less than that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's about what I can say.
Yeah. That's nice.
Sorry, and I just missed the question I wanted to ask now. Give me 1 second. Sorry. You said that all the new customers at the moment come through these communities, right?
Not all. No.
big part
But
of it.
like a bigger part, I'd say a bigger part than what our competitors have, because they don't have somebody that comes through community.
That's something you cannot keep up as soon as you start to grow more and scale, right?
To a certain extent, I think we can, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you count with that.
Yes.
Okay.
I think it will, maybe in percentage, it will decrease as more you scale. But for us to work with customers and have this community around, and also I think have a different vibe than the private bank in who we are with the product, but also with the events we do, and like with everything that's part of our DNA. So we actually count that we will have more organic traffic is the right word in that. Yes. And what we're working on there is also that we implement more data into Selma. So right now you have to tell your stuff to your digital advisor, right? You tell Selma, okay, I have a house, it's this and this much worth, or I have an account at Coinbase, whatever.
Yeah.
And for some, and in the future for more of those things, there are actually APIs available, so there is data available that you can connect. So you don't have to tell us.
Yeah.
Tell
So you
us
can
anymore.
just connect these other sources where you already gave information, and
Exactly.
this kind of all
And
feeds
that
into Selma.
feeds into your advisor. That becomes, with more data, becomes more knowledgeable about your wealth situation,
And makes better investments
and makes
for your
better
case.
investments for you. Yes.
That's cool. Yeah, you talked about your DNA. I really like that DNA. That it's kind of a fun. There's always a little bit of fun in it, and it feels not banky. So
Yeah, that's also what we said. We'd like to. Our advisor tries to talk to you about the things that you're actually interested in. So about what is your life situation, maybe also what you care about. So things like, what do you think about weapons in your in your portfolio, or how do you think about self-driving cars? Things like that are actually interesting, but it doesn't really talk about the beta factor of a stock where you fall asleep.
yeah. That's nice. So I read up you got, is it right that what Crunchbase tells me, you got 2 rounds of funding?
Yeah, it's basically one, but
It's basically one.
but it's stretched into
Well, anyways,
Yes.
congratulations for
Sure.
that. Not many startups make it that far. How did you find your investors, and how long did the whole process take?
We found them mainly through a personal network, and it takes quite some time. So I think especially if you look for people that help you not only with money and are also a fit for you, then you need to prepare to take some time.
Right.
Because when you go through the process, there is also always people that you don't really want the money from. And if you are forced to take the money from people you don't want it from, it's not going to end well.
Yeah.
And I mean, you might be very closely like in related with them. So with some of our investors, we work very closely with them, and if they'd be horrible people, it wouldn't be very nice, right? So
could you walk us through that process, in a short amount of time, because it's a long process obviously, but maybe how does it look like for someone who has never raised any money?
So I think first you need to figure out what kind of investors you need for somebody that has never raised any money, and meaning what kind of investors you need. You also need to be first you need to work yourself on like figuring out what kind of story you have to tell. So what stage are you at? What do you need help with? Maybe also apart from the money. So first, like where are we now, and where do we want to go? And the money is only something that falls out of that, right? So you need the money to go to this next stage. That's your investor pitch. But you don't start with, okay, we now would be cool to raise $1 million. And then you figure the rest out.
And let's see what we make with that $1 million.
Yeah, exactly. So, and when you work on your story, so you work on your pitch. You say, okay, this is our company right now. This is where we want to go. This is where we stand with our clients, with our traction. It's called, right? So then you already see what kind of investors you would ideally need. Right, so do you need somebody that helps you actively, or do you just need capital because everything is just already set in stone? Do you need somebody that helps you grow as fast as possible, or maybe do you need somebody to figure out certain things in your business? And I think from there you know what kind of people you need, and this also depends on the stage of the company. And then you can obviously start looking, okay, in other companies when they were at this stage, who invested in them? Is there you start reaching out to your network. You can also, I think, maybe start to people that have invested a little bit later and let them refer people that might be good for you. I think something very valuable. One of the most valuable advices that I once got and that I'm going to give further is that in the end of every meeting, you should ask the person you have talked to, like, who else should we, like, who could help us? Who else should we talk to?
Yeah.
And that's basically following this advice has made us meet our first investor.
That's so funny, because we do that right now with interviews.
Yes.
For our future customers.
Yeah.
And we do that every time at the end. And
so valuable.
It's super valuable, and it's very powerful because people like to help. So don't be afraid. So our first investor came from somebody I knew. So I was out. I knew quite a lot of people in the investment business area. But, well, I didn't really know how to start the investor process, right? We had prepared our case, we knew where we go, but it was still like more PowerPoint than code. And so I started reaching out to my network, also to ask them to challenge this. I think you don't need to go out and say, okay, I need money. It's not a good idea. So you go out and first you ask for advice. You ask people to challenge this. And when they find it's a good idea, they might help you. So you might not get the money, but you might get advice how to make this into a proper business case. And then when you ask for contacts, you might get other people that can help you more. And then in the end, when you have all of this done, then you might figure out that some of those people actually also want to give you their money.
Right.
Which is how it went with us. So with our first investor, we first talked a lot about the product and how he could help us and how we how we would build this together, and if we're aligned in where we want to go, and then came the money question.
Yeah, I remember a saying, ask for money, get advice. Ask for advice, get money twice.
Yes.
That's a good.
I've never heard that, but
or it's a version of this, yeah. So always go for advice. It's worth much more, and the money might follow if there's a fit.
You mentioned that it's important, like what investor you choose, right?
Yes.
Then you mentioned one thing that isn't like one characteristic. You have to work with them afterwards, so you need to like them somehow.
Yes.
Is there other things, other characteristics where you said like, okay, they have this, I won't take them, or they do it like that, I will take them?
I think when you meet them, you kind of feel it, right? You know, I think liking is quite a good. There is people that are challenging, but you still, you know, they bring you further, and that's okay. But I think maybe if you go like to like if you be locked into a room for like 3 days and you feel okay, that's absolutely impossible with that person, then you shouldn't take this person as an investor. And if you feel okay, it might even be fun, and we've had so much to talk about, then
it's a good test.
Yes, I think also in the talks we had with our investors, that the questions they ask and the challenges, so you get into this discussion, right? So if you feel it's just a one-way street and people wanna like rip you apart before they have even invested, maybe you shouldn't do it.
Right. Yeah. There needs to be a personal fit, definitely. Do you have any other questions before the
big question?
The big question.
Now we can continue with the big one.
All right.
Okay.
So the big question is, no need to be afraid. What would you say was or is the biggest challenge for you personally in that whole story of Selma Finance?
Well, I think the biggest challenge generally in a startup is that it doesn't always go up. Like it's not I mean, if you worked in a startup, you know that. You have days where you feel, okay, this is never going to work. This is all going to fall apart. This is a absolute catastrophe. But those days disappear. And you have a certain insecurity that if you are an employee and your salary just arrives, you don't have that. So, and I mean, like there is often there is nobody that comes and says, "Okay, Patrik, well done." So you have to do that yourself, also as the startup. This needs to be a part of your culture, that you also celebrate your wins, and that also when things sometimes look black, they might look far better a day later. Right. So, and I mean, in my experience, like the shit always comes in piles. So, meaning if something goes wrong, then there is a chance that a lot of things goes wrong. But at one point, it's over again. And
right.
Then things start to work very nicely.
And then you wait for the next pile.
And then but then you're prepared for it to come.
Exactly.
And maybe then you jump, then you jump through it instead of, and then it's easier, right?
Absolutely.
I wouldn't say you enjoy it, but
let's not go.
I just see this image of a man jumping through a pile of shit. It's like so random.
Is there anything specific you do in those moments, in those really bad days, to get out of it?
I think what's important is that you go back on the bigger, also on the bigger vision and what you actually do, and that helps, because sometimes you're, have this nitty-gritty things. And I usually make this 5-year test. So I look at things and say, okay, is this gonna am I gonna be worried about this in 5 years from now, or is this is it big enough? Is it worth my energy to be annoyed about this? Am I and when I say, okay, it's might not even be annoyed about this in a month, then it's not worth it.
Yeah.
So you have to, I think, go to another level, and try to get a little bit out and look at things from above.
Yeah, I have the 10-10-10 test. Is it going to annoy me in 10 days, 10 months, and 10 years?
Yeah,
but it's the same.
Yeah.
It really helps.
Yeah, it's the same in theory.
Because you realize it's not that big of a problem usually.
Usually it's not.
Yeah.
And I mean, there we have in our company the culture that things should come out as soon as possible. So
if you mean when there's something not working,
yes,
or you're annoyed by something,
yes,
or
things
someone.
are, when it's something is not working, things are always communicated immediately. And we also try to set an example there as founders. So if we fuck something up, or if something doesn't work, we also communicate that right away. So if we did something wrong, and that's very human and normal, and if those things blow up earlier, then you can actually do something about it. If things don't get communicated, then it might be too late to solve them.
Do you have one big learning from your experience as a founder that you would like to share?
I have a lot of learning.
The biggest one?
Well, I think for me, in the bank, I always thought, okay, I must wait here until I have a great idea. And then if this great idea comes and drops from the sky, I don't know how this would have been happening, I have to protect it and not tell it to anybody. And in my learning, it's the complete opposite. So you need to get started, and then the most important thing is just to get through. So you just need to continue. And you need to share your ideas and thoughts. If you haven't developed a battery that is 20 times better and really needs a patent, then you need to share and communicate everything as openly as possible.
Yeah.
And if your competitor copies you, then
that's a compliment.
That's a compliment. Yes.
That's a compliment. How do you get started, though? I mean, you hear that everywhere online. You say, you need to share your ideas. Still, a lot of people don't do that. But how do you get started? So, the idea doesn't fall off the sky. How would you recommend someone starts?
I mean, we started, as we did, we started with this font comparison, right? And then we started showing that to people. And even internally, we had people that said, okay, what is this? And then you take it from there.
So you take a problem. You said okay. The problem we want to solve is it's really hard for people to find
good investments.
Yes. So we're gonna solve. Yeah, and then you build something small.
And then you build something small, and something small means it doesn't even need to be a software. It can be it can be a PowerPoint or a piece of paper or a drawing. And I mean, then you start asking people, and you try to sell it to somebody. If they say they're interested, then ask them to buy it. Then you see if they're really interested.
That's the best test.
And then if they say they're asked to buy it, then ask them to give you the money right away.
Yeah. It sounds really, really weird, but that's how you should do it, right? Because everyone's going to say, I would pay maybe 10 francs. But then you ask, okay, pay it now.
Yeah.
They don't do it. Most of them won't do it. Huh. So, do you have anything that you would do differently looking back?
I think I do a lot of things differently, but on the other hand, it's also with the things you do, you did maybe wrong, or where you took a detour, it's also the learning that comes with them. So I don't know. I don't really like to criticize decisions that you took in the past. Doesn't really help.
No, it doesn't. You can't change the past.
Yeah, exactly. You can't change it, and if you'd done it differently, you don't know what the result would have been anyway.
Right.
So,
and you might not have learned what you learned.
Yes.
Yeah. We keep asking that question because I think we have a feeling that most founders have this mentality of not regretting mistakes.
I think you would slowly start to kill yourself if you would regret every decision you did.
No, then you couldn't decide, and
like...
I think not being able to decide is the worst because you need to move forward.
Yeah.
I think what maybe in some things we would maybe be even more bold and even more courageous. So when you say, okay, like for things where you don't know the answer can also only come when you try it, right?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
So why are you hopeful for the future of your startup?
Because I think we're building something that creates a lot of value for our customers, and I feel ultimately when you create value, it will also be valuable for people.
Yeah, definitely. I could see that on the website as well, and also with the contributors that you were mentioning. And our last question that we always ask: what's the last book or that you read, blog post or video that you saw that you would recommend to any future founder?
Recommend to a founder. The last book I read was Steppenwolf from Hermann Hesse, but I think it was really, I'm not sure if I would recommend that. It's a bit weird. So
I haven't read it. I don't know.
You haven't read it?
No.
So
doesn't necessarily need to be the last, but
I'm just thinking what was the best one. I've recently been reading a lot about OKRs because we have implemented them, and I think they're very helpful.
What are OKRs for someone who doesn't know that world?
They're like basically how it works is that you try to break the goals of your company down to everybody, so that you exactly know what your contribution is to reach the overall company goal, and that it gets visible how you contribute for something bigger. So for us, it might be like that we grow the company to a certain amount of clients, and then you start, okay, how are we doing that? But then the responsibility, how you work on your individual goal is very much on your own. Which means you have a goal, but you're fully self-responsible how to reach that. Means it gives people a lot of trust how to do their work, and you don't have this like what you usually have in a bank, that you can't really take a decision because for every decision you have to ask your boss, and the boss needs to ask his boss, and this boss needs to take it to a management meeting that will tell you that you need to have 3 other meetings before...
You're saying that so beautifully. That's how it is. Yeah.
So, and that gives, it means, I think when you want people to think in an entrepreneurial way, you also need to have the ability to make decisions. Like you can't just have responsibility and no ability to make decisions. That doesn't work.
Yeah. So OKR, objectives and key results.
Yes, I didn't say what.
So you set an objective.
Yes.
For example, we want to grow by 10%. Right, that's already too specific. We want to grow our customer base, and then you define, I don't know, 1 to 5 key results.
Yes.
Like we want to grow 10%. Yeah, and 5 of those, and then you also assign those to specific teams or specific people that are then responsible to achieve those key results. It's a very good. We implemented it as well.
Absolutely, great tool. Quite easy to understand, kind of, and read through it and check it out.
You should Google it.
Yes. So that's something I've been reading quite a lot about.
Yeah.
recently.
Very useful. All right, that was it.
Okay, already
you so
done.
much, Patrik.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for your time and for and for sharing all these
No problem.
special,
Thanks for having me.
special insights. Sure, and all the best for Selma.
Thank you. All the best for your future interviews.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you for listening to another episode of Startup Stories. If you want to revisit parts of the interview, check out the show notes and blog post on our website at nerdentrepreneurs.com. That's nerdentrepreneurs.com. If you liked this episode, please consider subscribing to the show by clicking on the subscribe button in your podcast app. This shows us you appreciate our efforts and doesn't really cost you anything, does it? I'm looking forward to sharing our next episode with you next Monday, where I interview a founder focused on delivering sustainable clothing to your doorstep. Stay tuned and see you next week.